And we're back. I am BKP. Good morning from beautiful downtown Blue Ridge. We're here every Friday morning at the shops at Sycamore Crossing. And I have been waiting all morning long for this opportunity and this time to sit down with my next guest, Peggy Miracle Consolver, shepherd, potter, spy, and star namer. Peggy, how are you this morning? Glad to have you.
I am good. Thank you for inviting me.
First of all, glad to have you to Blue Ridge, Georgia. Have you ever been to Blue Ridge, Georgia?
Never, but I've heard a lot about it.
And obviously, you're from Plano, Texas.
I am.
Plano, Texas. That's just outside of Dallas.
Yes, it is.
Well, as a Texan, we're the nation mourns and sends our prayers to everyone in Texas and the families this morning after the devastation. Your book, let's just go right into Shepherd, Potter, Spy, and the Star Namer. Give us your background in the book and what inspired you to write this.
My background is I was reading through the Bible chronologically for 14 years. And after 5 or 6, I kept stopping on Joshua 9 and 10 because there's so much specific information given about the Gibeonites. More than most episodes that are told. And so I became curious, what caused those people to do what they did, and I began to do research.
Now this is your first book?
It is.
And what inspired you to say, I want to write a book, and what kind of research did you do other than just reading the Bible?
What inspired me to write a book was our granddaughter, who at 7 years old was beginning to read chapter books, and she was so excited about it that she said, Grammy, I want to grow up and be an author, write books. And I thought to myself, I thought the same thing when I was her age. And I had just had a brush with breast cancer, and I decided if I was going to do that, I needed to get started. So, looking for something that would catch my interest, and fell back on Joshua 9 and 10 that I'd been so intrigued by. And so I read everything I could find, archaeology, took some Old Testament history, para-history courses, and different things things just popped up to enable me to learn more about it. Articles in the National Geographic about a woman journalist going across the outback by herself with 4 or 5 camels. So the way to handle camels and the personality of the camels. And so I think some of that comes through in the book. So
tell us a little bit. Now, we've said Joshua 9 and 10 a couple of times reading through the Bible, and I will say when you go into the bookstores, you will see books that are focused on different parts of the Bibles as a study, and you don't run across very many pieces of literature that focus on Joshua 9 and 10. Give us a little bit of summary. What is Joshua 9 and 10 for those people that may not understand what that is?
The book of Joshua...
And me.
The book of Joshua is the Hebrews' entrance into Canaan, into the Promised Land, after their 40 years of wandering in the wilderness. The story of the Gibeonites, first the Hebrews marched around Jericho. Everybody's heard that story from Sunday school.
7 times?
Once each day for 6 days, and 7 times on the last day. And then they shouted, and the
wall
city fell down.
Yeah.
Yes. So
we sang that in Sunday school.
Of course we did.
Right?
Of course we did.
So the Jericho, which many of us know that story. So.
Yes. And then the next episode is the conquering of Ai, a whole different situation. And then the Gibeonites enter in chapter 9 and 10. What caused them, what in their background caused them to decide to go to Joshua, not knowing if they would live or die, and ask for a treaty, saying, we are your servants. What caused them to do that? Every other people group in the area was rising up, getting as big an army as they could get, in order to fight back. Why did they do that? That's the plausible fiction that I've constructed to go along with the historical record.
Well, explain a little bit of the book and what people will see, like the name, the shepherd, the potter, the spy, and the star namer. So tell us a little bit of take us through the book and what age groups it would appeal to, who all it would appeal to.
Number one, the main character is 12 years old, and it's told from his deep point of view. So some of my reviewers have said, I felt like I was there and I was watching it myself because you're seeing it through his eyes. He's a 12-year-old boy. He has a family of potters. So first he's a shepherd. Then he gets promoted to working in the pottery business and helping one of his uncles take pottery to market. So he goes to Jericho and he goes to Jerusalem to market days. And then and all along the way, there are tiny vignettes about the Hebrews, because the Hebrew story starts in Numbers chapter 20. That's essentially the last year of their wandering in the wilderness. So while they're having their episodes of the snakes in the wilderness and different things, there are little page-and-a-half episodes about them and about a fictional nephew of Joshua. It's told through his eyes. So then, when the Hebrews get to the Jordan River, and now it becomes obvious, yes, they are coming into Canaan, to the Canaanites, the people in Canaan. Then the Gibeonites put a rotation of spies up on the ridge above Jericho, which, having been there, this now is called the Mount of Temptation. It's also where Satan.
And you've been there.
I've been there. And so they were looking down from this ridge onto Jericho and then Gilgal and Shittim over here on either side of the river. So they watched the Hebrews come across the river on dry ground. And they watched Jericho fall. And then they had somebody follow over and they watched Ai be set afire. And so they themselves were watching to see if the Hebrews might advance in toward them. It seemed logical that they would. So they intervened and approached them in humility to ask for a treaty.
Well, this book you've written in a way, and I tell you, I enjoyed hearing your passion in this, and any time I would tell anybody, if you're looking for, if you're saying, well, I think I might read that book, I don't want to say I wouldn't suggest not to read a book, but I do suggest to read a book when you're listening to such passion from the author, because you know that that's going to come out in the visual in the book. So I could just feel that you have put that over into the book. Middle schoolers, age groups, children?
The first 20 chapters have been graded for readability at grade 5.5. So a fifth grade reader up. And I hope that it can get into the hands, because it is getting excellent reviews for having been written excellently. I'm hoping that it'll get into the hands of homeschoolers and Christian schools to use it as a literature resource, a reading resource. In fact, I have written a study guide, which is available in September, which is digging deeper into his story. All the research that I did for this book, I really couldn't just tell you, I found this exciting thing, because I was telling it from the character's point of view. I couldn't say anything that he didn't know. Or
exactly.
He wouldn't say. So, wrote the study guide to fill you in on some of the neat research.
If you're writing it with characters in the book, references is not kindly a book where you give all the references and everything,
exactly.
But that is the study guide to this.
Yes.
That references everything that somebody's reading
so
here.
It will send you,
that would go real well in homeschooling and so forth. Read the book, study right with it.
Yes. So there are 13 units in here. So about 2 to 5 chapters in each unit. And so it'll tell you to go do a map study. So you begin to know where these places are. Also, how do you feel about something that happened in that unit? Or research. And I'm excited about this because I give them an internet link to go to a website such as a YouTube where they demonstrate how to throw a sling stone, how to sling a sling stone. 2 different methods. Not just the one we learned in Sunday school, only a boy named David, you know. And then,
you're taking me back.
and so that's what I wrote. But then when I was researching this, I would see if I could find something about that. And the first one I found, it was a softball fast pitch method, you know, like over like this.
Right.
I thought, oh no, I did it wrong. But then the next time I went back to verify, it was still active. And there were 2 of them. So there are 2 methods. There is this method, but there's the softball method too.
Your first book, I want to write a book myself, and just talk about your writing this book. Were you able to just flow all the way through it and do it? I mean, I get amazed when people write a book and go. I mean, I would get stumped at the middle. I'd have to take breaks. How was the experience of writing a book?
Well, it was amazing, actually. But it's the next book that I will have that problem with, because the next book, I have to figure out a plot. For this book, I just went with what the scripture said.
I see what you're saying.
So I knew what had to happen next. And so I never did have a writer's block on that. So the next book, I will experience that.
Now, do you plan in your next book, before we get past this one, do you plan in your next book to go right off of this one here, to double off this one as the characters, or something new? You have something in your heart and mind?
I do have in mind to write the next book about several of these characters, not the main character, because his job will now be to be Joshua's assistant, and Joshua will not be in the next story.
Right.
What I think will be when those 5 kings of the Amorites are all killed, then there's going to be a power vacuum in Jerusalem.
Wow, I like this. I like this. This is great. Let me ask you a question. You're here in Blue Ridge. What brought you to Blue Ridge, other than the opportunity for me to meet you and your husband? I want to tell you what a joy that has been. We were able to get together for a short period of time last night and meet. So what brings you to Blue Ridge, Georgia?
Well, my dear friend, Denora Dial, who is a fellow Garden Club member and my mentor for 25 years, I met her daughter, Jane Whaley, who is the owner of this area, this property. And she invited me to come and have a book signing here this weekend. So
you're doing a book signing here. Give us some details. Let's make sure before we go this morning that you give us some details about the book signing, so we can get that out. And I do know, if you go to fetchernews.com, you'll find this in the community section. We have a complete story on Peggy Consolver, Shepherd, Potter, Spy, and the Star Name. Go to fetchernews.com. We have a story up there now you can read. When is the book signing?
I think starting about noon today here in the courtyard.
Noon today in the courtyard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I will have my book and my green pen. Saturday and Sunday.
So right here at the shops of Sycamore Crossing, downtown Blue Ridge, starting at noon today, Peggy will be here signing her book, and she'll be glad to talk to you about it and all the things that inspired her to write this book. And she'll be here also Saturday and Sunday in lovely downtown Blue Ridge. Why did you emphasize your green pen? What was so important about your green pen?
Well, I was wearing a green hat in a picture taken in front of
Much like today.
Well, yes.
Yeah, that's how they start the story.
George took a picture of me in front of the Sea of Galilee, with the Sea of Galilee in the background. And so when I needed to make a business card, I chose that picture.
So
I was wearing a green hat and a green blouse. So as an author, I always wear green.
And you have a green pen.
And I have a green pen to sign my books.
Well, Peggy, we thank you very much for coming this morning. We've been talking to Peggy Miracle Consolver, and this is the book Shepherd, Potter, Spy, and Star Namer. You can hear the passion in this author as she was writing this book, and I'm for sure, I just got the book last night myself, so I plan to read this hopefully this weekend, but you can feel the passion in our interview this morning from this author, and you know when you hear that it's going to come through her writing. And hey, I'm so glad you came.
May I say it's available?
Yeah, we're going to get to that. We're going to close. Okay, where can they find your book?
It is available at any bookstore. It may be not on the shelf, but it can be ordered because Ingram Distributors has it.
So Ingram Distributors has your book, so it actually
Barnes and Noble,
anywhere. So if you can't find it on a shelf, it can be ordered.
Mardell's, any independent Christian bookstore can order it.
And do you have a website yourself, or a way people can contact you?
PeggyConsolver.com.
PeggyConsolver.com. And come by and meet her this weekend here in Blue Ridge. Shops of Sycamore Crossing, downtown Blue Ridge. And she'll be glad to sign the book and also share her experiences. Archaeological dig?
Ah, yes.
George, I said that. How many syllables was that, George? Archaeological dig. And I got that. The joke is once I get the 3 syllables, I'm messed up. What do you have with you?
This is an artifact that is not a sign of scientific value because I found it on the top of the ground at an abandoned archaeological site. It is difficult to say. But we went with Associates for Biblical Research, and we were on a 2-week dig at Kirbet El Makader, which they believe is the true site of Ai, the city that's spelled A-I, in Joshua, the book of Joshua. And so we were there, and it was the adventure of our lives.
So you did the research. You didn't just write the book and go off references and studying the passages in the Bible. You went there yourself.
As I started to write, I turned to my husband and I said, if I really write this book, maybe I should go there. And so he did a little research and came up with this archaeological dig.
That's awesome.
He is awesome.
One more time, this book can be purchased at any bookstore. Ingram has the book, so if you go in and you can't find it in the bookstore, you just ask them, it can be ordered. PeggyConsolver.com, did I get that?
Yes.
Okay, that's her website, and she will be here today at noon in Blue Ridge and Saturday and Sunday, so come and visit us. I am your host, BKP. We are live. North Georgia's only live online morning show. I always want to say good morning from the office, but I think I'm just going to make this my office. Can you believe I get to come here every Friday morning and sit out in this beautiful plaza area? Peggy, thank you so much. We wish you and your husband a safe trip home. And again, we send all of our thoughts and prayers to all of your friends and family and the people of Dallas and the surrounding area.
Yes.
Lonnie, take us a break. Now, before we go to break, when we come back, we're going to be wrapping the show up. We got about 25 minutes. Mr. George McClellan's going to come in, and we're going to wrap up. And then with him, Mrs. Jane Whaley, the owner of the property here, is going to come in. And we're just going to have a little discussion to close out the day as far as many events that are happening in this country now. Lonnie, take us to break.